Good evening, everyone. This is your evening news recap, your nightly news podcast on all the news that I come across throughout the day, giving you my take as somebody who aspires to be a politician in the near future. Hopefully, all you guys are doing wonderful. Hopefully, all you guys are well. Today is December 18th, and it is No, it is Thursday, not Wednesday. Hopefully, all you guys are having a wonderful week so far, and hopefully, everything is going swimmingly in your lives. If you're new here, though, please consider subscribing. All the support would be greatly appreciated as we are trying to hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube by this summer. We just hit 600. Let's go, baby. Thank you for all the support. Thank you for all the support getting us here so far. I mean, 600, that's a big deal. We started doing this in January of this year. Well, no, we started doing YouTube videos a little bit after that. But we started making content as a whole in January of this year, and we've already done super well. So I truly thank you so much, everyone, for all the support. It is really greatly appreciated. And let's keep growing. Share the channel with your friends, share the channel with your family, anyone who you think might like these videos. Tell them to subscribe because all the support is greatly appreciated. But with that being said, if you're on Substack, please also consider subscribing as well. All funds go to me. It's $8 a month, and it helps me pay for the things that I need to pay for in my life, like my groceries, clothing, all those kinds of things. This is a viewer-supported show, so all the support is truly greatly appreciated. That being said, though, got my wisdom teeth pulled a few days ago. We're still feeling it a little bit. I'm still really swollen on this cheek. I'm sure you guys can tell. But we're here. This is going to be a very long episode because we have the last 3 days to cover. But hopefully I can make it through it without too much pain. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, with that being said, let's get straight into it because we got a lot to talk about. Moving on into the Trump administration segment before we start today, I do want to just say there are 7 pages of this. This might not be the longest. I believe we've had 8 pages before, but as always, let's get into it. Moving on into the Trump administration, Trump has banned Head Start from using 200 different words and phrases. For those who don't know, Head Start, the Head Start program helps youth development, I believe. I think it's popular in like elementary schools and preschools around the country. According to new court filings, the Trump administration has sent the Head Start program 6 pages of around 200 words and phrases they can no longer use in grant applications and service descriptions. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services has instructed applicants to remove terms including accessible, disability, women, Black, LGBTQ, trans, and many, many more, like literally so many. It's 200 words and phrases. If they do not comply with this, Head Start will face a lack of funding. Blocking programs that help the youth from using terms like these to request grants is absolutely wild. I mean, blocking the word women is insane on so many levels. Not only is it sexist, but it's a term used to describe another gender. I mean, the word man or men hasn't been banned, so why women? Like, how do you expect people to explain the other gender? Come on, guys, truly. It really is because the elites and the leaders of this country are bigots, and a list of so many other terms. This is by far one of the stupidest things I have ever heard. I mean, the fact that we're banning women as a term for, requesting funding from the government is absolutely wild. I mean, that's literally a gender. They say there's only 2 genders, and then they ban one of these genders from being used as a term completely. Like, what the fuck are we doing, guys? Sorry for the poor language, but you guys know me. Um, it's truly just the stupidest thing I've ever heard. It really is. It's just another day within the Trump administration. It really is. Anyways, in other news, Trump may have to give up his psych records as well. In another massive lawsuit, is looking to make Trump release his medical records, if I could speak, and much, much more. The demand was filed by the Pulitzer Prize Committee as part of the defamation lawsuit Trump filed against them for a report investigating his Russian ties. The Pulitzer Board's attorneys has given Trump 30 days to hand over all of his tax documents and all of his documents related to his medical or psychological health. This would require Trump to show essentially everything about him, his financial state, where he got that money from, his mental state, literally everything. Something millions of Americans and millions of people around the world have wanted answers to for months. This would be one of the greatest gifts I could ever get as somebody who truly despises Trump. As all of you know, but for those who don't, I have done a shit ton of research on this man, whether it's for high school projects, whether it's through doing work for this, the news recap, or really just any other reason. But like, if you give me access to Donald Trump's psych records and his tax documents, you are essentially letting me confirm everything that I've been saying since the start of making this videos, which would be a wet dream and a half for me, I'll be completely honest. So please let this one happen. I would love that so much. Do I think it will? No, no, and if it does, it's probably going to be a lie, like a lot of the medical records that we have seen from Trump. But, I've said this time and time again, Trump is a Russian asset. He's an Israeli asset. He's an asset of a lot of countries. He is a puppet. He does not do or make his own decisions. And half the time it really doesn't seem like he even really knows what he's doing himself, which is unshocking, but hey. In other news, Trump addressed the nation last night. Trump looked to address the nation last night in a post on Truth Social announcing this. He wrote, "My fellow Americans, I will be giving an address to the nation tomorrow night live from the White House at 9 p.m. EST. I look forward to seeing you then. It has been a great year for our country, and the best is yet to come. This comes as a time where many controversies are coming out of this administration, like the Epstein files, war with Venezuela, and much, much more. None of those things of which he addressed." This took place last night, and it was definitely something. It felt like I was watching a propaganda speech, and I think I want to do a solo video on it just itself, rather than a news recap this weekend, to give myself a bit of a break from the news recap. But I need to figure a few things out for that, so it's like a 50-50 chance. Don't expect that for sure. But as long as I can figure everything out that I need to figure out, it is very possible. I'm also in the process of doing research and stuff for it. I have like a good amount. I've really torn into a lot of the things he said because he did lie quite frequently within this. It really was a whole lot of lies, and I mean, one of the biggest ones that stuck out to me was the man blamed the housing crisis in the United States on immigrants, which is one of the biggest jokes I've ever heard, uh, just as this whole administration, really. But to blame the housing crisis on immigrants is insane. The real problem with housing in this country is we have millions of homes that just sit on the market, not being touched, but also we have millions of homes being created and built by these companies who jack up the rates and make it essentially impossible to buy a home in this country. That's why so many people cannot afford to buy a home. That's why homes cost so much. It's a massive deal and something that we should change if we want Americans to actually be able to afford to live here, yet nobody cares because they would rather put more money in their pockets. I mean, that's just how it goes these days, right? Uh, as a whole, like the whole address to a nation was really just a propaganda speech filled with lies. It felt like a waste of time. It really just felt like 15 minutes of a waste of my time. You all are welcome to watch it. By all means, please go watch it if you want to experience Trump speech with lies. But at the end of the day, it really just felt like one of his campaign speeches where he promised things that he wasn't going to do and said, "I did this, I did that, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that," and then none of it is actually true. So, I mean, what more do you expect from the man, truly? In other news, Trump has called the FBI raid on Mar-a-Lago illegal. In a new post on True Social, Trump has called the FBI raid at his Mar-a-Lago resort illegal, the same raid that led to him being prosecuted. In his post, he wrote, "Unreasonable search and seizure. That was the FBI's criminal raid on Mar-a-Lago. This can never be allowed to happen again. President Donald J. Trump." This is a lie. I mean, this was one of the most lawful raids that you could say have taken place in a while. Most raids are like lawful, but I mean, it took place because Trump took documents that he was not supposed to have after leaving office. Trump stole 33 boxes of office 33 boxes of items from his office after leaving the presidency, classified items, and much, much more. Also, the FBI does not have to announce a raid. Unlike Trump claims, the FBI does not have to do that. They do not have to tell you that they are going to come and commit a raid. But they also had a warrant for this raid. For sure, you can say that this was a very legal raid. Um, of course, Trump is going to claim anything against him is illegal. He even said that, questioning his mental health was illegal just a little bit ago. I believe that was like sometime last week. I could find the post on True Social if I really wanted to. I believe we've already talked about it. We've talked about everything this man says. So like, once again, it's just another lie out of all the lies that we hear from this man time and time again. In other news, the Trump administration is dismantling a critical research center that saves people from national disasters and much, much more. The Trump administration is planning to dismantle Colorado's National Center for Atmospheric Research, the largest federal climate research lab. The plan was announced by Russell Vought, the director of the White House Office of Management and Budget, on Twitter. Vought said in his post, The National Science Foundation will be breaking up the National Center for Atmospheric Research in Boulder, Colorado. This facility was one of the largest sources of climate alarmism in the country. A comprehensive review is underway, and any vital activities, such as weather research, will be moved to another entity or location. This center researches national disasters and predicts them, along with doing research on climate change and the impacts of it. Something we need to be looking into, especially with the rise of AI in the United States and the impacts that AI has on the environment, which are not great at all. I mean, I've been doing a bunch of research on AI over the past few days. I've been watching a lot of documentaries, a lot of TED Talks and stuff like that. And really just a lot of videos on it as a whole. And one thing I've learned recently is AI, as on a daily basis, is using the same amount of water that a town of 50,000 people uses on a daily basis, which is absolutely insane. Uh, you know, we need to be doing research into things like climate change and the impacts of AI with climate change, because it's going to be negatively impactful, and it is already negatively impactful. I mean, this administration and AI companies are trying to find ways to get their profits and to make more money. They don't care about human life or the safety of our planet, which is a massive deal and something that should not be the case. It's all about profits for them, and that is something that needs to be changed because it shouldn't be about profits. It should be about the success of human life, and it should be about the prosperity of human life. We should be making the lives of Americans better rather than putting the lives of everyone on Earth at risk. In other news, Trump has put his own handwritten beliefs about each of his predecessors on White House walls. Trump has gone after his predecessors in the latest addition to the White House, this time adding his own personal beliefs and opinions on each and every single one of them. The White House this week has added plaques below the portraits of former presidents on Trump's Walk of Fame. Many biographies offer standard historical summaries, except give a Trump twist, seemingly writing like a true social post. JFK's plaque calls the 35th president a painful setback, and the plaque for Harry S. Truman takes shots at his domestic agenda. Many of these seemingly reading like a true social post, of course. Obama's plaque refers to Barack Obama as Barack Hussein Obama and calls him one of the most divisive political figures in American history, which is insane because, in case you don't remember, Rednecks for Obama was a massive thing. Obama brought a lot of people together. Calling him one of the most divisive political figures in American history just is not the case. That man brought so many people together. This is what the president spends his free time doing, by the way. Unshockingly, what more do you expect? Rather than leading the country or, providing things for his people, he is writing biographies about his predecessors because, that's really the most important thing. To claim that JFK's presidency was a painful setback is absolutely wild. I mean, that man was arguably one of the greatest presidents of all time and would have been if he wasn't killed. And we'll talk about this in a second, but Trump also just got his name on the Kennedy Center, which is also insane. As a whole, this is a lot of bullshit, and just like most of Trump's projects, if you can even call it that, is a waste of time and shouldn't even be happening in the first place. Yet the president gets his way because what? He's going to throw a fit, I guess. What are we doing? We need better people in office. We should not have people like this running the country. It's very clear that we should not have these rich billionaire people or these movie actors or these TV stars or all these other people who are not even involved with politics in the first place be in office because there's no reason for them to be. They are clearly not suited for the position, nor should they be there. I mean, we see it with Trump on a daily basis. In other news, RFK Jr. is looking to ban gender affirming care for the youth within the United States. Health officials from the Trump administration are expected to make several moves to ban gender affirming care for transgender youth, even in states where it is legal. This was announced in a press conference at the headquarters for the Department of Health and Human Services in Washington, D.C. The ban forms two possible new rules. The first would prohibit doctors and hospitals from receiving federal Medicaid reimbursement if they provide gender affirming care to transgender patients. The second rule would block all Medicaid and Medicare funding for services at hospitals providing pediatric gender affirming care. This would make getting this care extremely difficult, if not essentially impossible, which will, not can, will lead to the death of transgender youth throughout the United States of America. This is going to have horrible impacts on the mental health of transgender youth throughout the United States and will lead to suicides across the board. There is no questioning about that. If you look at studies around transgender mental health, transgender youth, and the lack of gender affirming care for transgender individuals, it leads to suicide. That's just me being blunt. It's not a can, it's a will. There are plenty of studies, plenty of people out there who have proven that, and it is absolutely fucking disgusting. As someone who has not been able to get gender affirming care for a variety of reasons, and as someone who's been through hell and back because of gender dysphoria, this should not be allowed to happen. Too many people in this country are far too dumb to realize that mental health is one of, if not the most important things for humans, and it's something that should be taken seriously. Gender dysphoria feels like being shot in the head. I've never been shot in the head, of course, but speaking from my own experience, gender dysphoria feels horrific, and that is not something I would ever wish on anyone, truly. Like, I would not wish gender dysphoria on my worst enemy. You can't just force people to suffer, especially in silence. That is going to lead to people killing themselves. I mean, that's just the truth of it. It really is. If you do, we are going to see a ton of more deaths in this country, especially from the youth, which isn't going to be great. My people, the transgender community, is one of the smallest minorities in the world, yet we're treated like shit on a day-to-day basis just because we want to live our lives without feeling like crap every single day. No one wants to live their life like that. No one wants to live their life hating every single part about themselves. Uh, Nobody does. If you do, by all means, do your thing, but nobody wants to live through that. Nobody wants to live through that discomfort or that experience. And the fact that we are trying to push that onto children within the United States in this country is not only really sad, but heartbreaking, especially as somebody who is a transgender individual. I've said that a few times. I try and dance around it because, we don't know where that's going to go within this administration. But it is very clear that that's what I am. I've also shown trans flags and stuff. Trans rights are human rights. And the fact that we are still like having this issue when there are so many studies out there that show that this is an important thing and these children should have access to these resources because it stops them from killing themselves is insane to me. And hopefully one day as a society we can lock in and figure that out. If not, just wait till I'm president, guys, because I'm locked in. Don't you worry. In other news, Trump has added his name to the Kennedy Center, renaming it to the Trump Kennedy Center. He didn't even make his the second one. He made sure to put it first. The Kennedy Center's Board of Trustees has voted to add Trump's name to the institution, making it the Trump Kennedy Center, according to Caroline Levitt. Levitt wrote on Twitter, "I've just been informed that the highly respected board of the Kennedy Center, some of the most successful people in all the parts of the world, have just voted to unanimously rename the Kennedy Center to the Trump Kennedy Center because of the unbelievable work that President Trump has done over the last year in saving the building, not only from the standpoint of its reconstruction, but also financially and its reputation. Congratulations to President Donald J. Trump. Likewise, congratulations to President Kennedy, because this will be a truly great team long into the future. The building will no doubt attain new levels of success and grandeur." Way to tarnish our legacy of really a building and an individual by putting junk next to greatness. Let's not forget that Trump called JFK and his presidency a painful setback. JFK, out of all people, is one of the greatest presidents of all time and one of the greatest presidents we will ever see. I mean, the man was not only one of no, no, no. The man was not only the only president to say screw you to Israel, but the only man to truly stick up for Americans within the office. And if JFK wasn't shot, he would have been remembered as the greatest president of all time. And that is a hill I will die on for the rest of my life. That is the type of president I and everyone else who wants to be president should strive to be, because he was a great president. He really was. And I mean, tarnishing the legacy of a man like JFK with Trump's name is just absolutely wild. I mean, we already got RFK in there. Do we really need to do more? Come on, guys. In other news, Trump has also signed his order to reclassify weed. Trump has officially signed his executive order to move weed out of the most restricted drug category, moving it from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3. This will allow more research into the drug and stop certain regulations, but won't make it legal nationwide. Trump said in the Oval Office, "I am pleased to announce that I will be signing an executive order to reschedule marijuana from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3 controlled substance with legitimate medical uses." This is holy voice crack. Oh my gosh. Okay. This is absolutely great news. That is going to make me laugh for the rest of this video. This is great news, and I'm sure it will have a lot of positive impacts on the overall weed market, which I personally am very excited for. I've said this before, and I'll keep saying this until it happens. Weed should not be regulated. It should be on par with alcohol and tobacco. It is much safer for you than both of those drugs, and Americans should have easy access to it. They really should. People have been smoking weed since the dawn of time. Even the nuns do it. Like, let's make it legal, guys. There's really no reason for it. I was born on 420. I've smoked weed quite a bit in my life. I really have. I still smoke weed. I'm going to be completely honest. And it's really a great thing for me. I have chronic back pain and a lot of other chronic body issues due to playing sports and a lot of other things throughout my life. And it also helps with gender dysphoria, mental health, and a bunch of other things. Helps me sleep, helps me eat, all those kinds of things. It has so many positive impacts on my life, and it has a bunch of positive impacts on so many other people's lives. And I'm a huge supporter and believer in the fact that it should be legal for everyone. I think if we had weed instead of alcohol, we would be so much better as a society, truly. I think if we could get like all of these people in the room who hated, if we get like all of these world leaders in a room, who just absolutely despise each other, or just all the leaders in a room together as a whole, and if we hotbox that room, I think we could solve world peace right there. Obviously not, that's just a joke, but um, I really do think we could have so many positive impacts on the world as a whole. And really, it should be legal across the board. And if it's not done by the time I make it into office, you bet your sweet bippy I am going to get it done. Anyways, in other news, Trump has seemingly announced his own version of the Hunger Games, which is really interesting. Trump has announced essentially his own version of the Hunger Games, calling it the Patriot Games. These games will be attended by one boy and one girl in high school from each state and will partake in a competition to see essentially who is the best athlete. There's not a lot of information available on like the event or the details, but in the Oval Office, Trump said that the game will feature one young man and one young woman from each state and territory. It will be a 4-day competition in the fall as part of the events for the 250th anniversary of the United States, which is really interesting. I'm going to be real. I haven't personally seen the Hunger Games, so I don't know how close the similarities are, but I saw a lot of these similarities made on posts online or, throughout the articles that I read about this. But from what I've heard, it is pretty similar, which is interesting. I think this could be fun, and I think this could be a great event, especially for those in high school who are really into sports. Although I played sports into high school, I was never really into them that much. I was on the football team in high school. I did track in high school. I did marching band for a little bit in high school, but not a lot. I also did drumline as well, and I did quite a few sports throughout high school and tried things and tried to be involved. I was more involved with FFA and stuff like that than I was with sports, but I did partake in them, and although they weren't the big thing for me, there were a lot of people that I met or got to see partake in sports that were clearly very interested in them, and I'm sure they would all love this opportunity. It also encourages people to be athletic, something we really need in this country. So, I don't see a big issue with this at all. I think this is a great thing. Um, and I think it's a great way to shine light on future athletes throughout the United States. We have things like the NFL, we have things like major sport leagues throughout the United States, and a lot of other, great sport leagues and stuff like that. But I think this is a great way to shed some light on high school athletes and, maybe even help them out in their future athletic careers, which is great. In other news, talking about the Epstein files now, as we're moving on to another segment, we have one topic here today, of course, though, as more Epstein pictures have now been released. Democrats have released another batch of photos, this time including 68 taken from the estate of Epstein. The photos come from the 95,000 photos given to the committee last week and include images from the lines of the novel Lolita, written on a woman's body. They include travel documents, text screenshots about an 18-year-old girl from Russia. There's also pictures of Bill Gates with a woman who has a covered face, text messages about finding girls for a fee, a picture of Epstein with Noam Chomsky, who is a philosopher. A lot of the things that we've seen already. These photos were really wild and honestly made me extremely uncomfortable, especially the ones picturing the woman with writing from the Lolita novel on them. They felt very, very eerie and made me really uncomfortable as a whole. It gave me a really gross feeling looking at those images and really just made me feel uneasy. These files need to be released as soon as possible, and all of those within them need to be torn down and sent to jail for the rest of their lives. We can't let creeps like this continue to roam society. What we saw, in these pictures, to me, like it really struck me. I don't know if you guys can tell right now, just me talking about this and thinking about this, but it did really strike me. Seeing those images, especially like, the images with the girls with writing on them specifically, that hit me a lot. And I'm struggling to like come up with words for that because I'm out of my script here, but um, this is a massive deal. The Epstein files are a massive deal, and it's something that needs to be released. And anyone affiliated with Epstein, anyone in these files, anyone who knew about the girls, anyone who knew about what Epstein was doing needs to go to jail for the rest of their life. I don't care who they are. I don't care where they've been. I don't care who they know. They need to go to jail for the rest of their life. In other news, talking about the conflict in Venezuela, where we have quite a few things today, Trump has blockaded all of Venezuelan oil tankers. Trump has ordered a full blockade of Venezuelan oil tankers leaving and entering the country. As always, he wrote on True Social, Venezuela is completely surrounded by the largest armada ever assembled in the history of South America. It will only get bigger, and the shock to them will be like nothing they have ever seen before, until such time as they return to the United States of America all of the oil, land, and other assets that they previously stole from us. The illegitimate Maduro regime is using oil from these stolen oil fields to finance themselves, drug terrorism, human trafficking, murder, and kidnapping, for the theft of our assets, and many other reasons, including terrorism, drug smuggling, human trafficking. The Venezuelan regime has been designated a foreign terrorist organization. Therefore, today I am ordering a total and complete blockade for all sanctioned oil tankers going into and out of Venezuela. The illegal aliens and criminals that the Maduro regime has sent into the United States during the weak and inept Biden administration are returned to Venezuela at a rapid pace. America will not allow criminals, terrorists, and other countries to rob, threaten, or harm our nation. Likewise, will not allow hostile regimes to take our oil, land, or any other assets, all of which must be returned to the United States immediately. Thank you for your attention to this matter. There's a lot to unpack here, and with this post, you can 100% without a doubt say that we are in a conflict, if not a war, with Venezuela. Trump is pushing for a war that hasn't even been approved by Congress right in front of our eyes, and something needs to be done about this. Trump is out here claiming that Venezuela's oil, Venezuela's assets, Venezuela's land, all of that is owned and controlled by the United States. That is what he just said. And if you don't see an issue with that, you got to lock in, because that is very clearly going against the sovereignty of another nation. I mean, that's just Trump saying himself, we own you, we control you, we own this country, not you. You are illegitimate. You need to get out because we are in control. That is what Trump said here. And that's just not the case. We do not have control over Venezuela. We do not have influence in Venezuela at all. Venezuela is nowhere near close to being our ally. Uh, any competent government or leader would not allow something like this to be the case, truly. And they will fight to protect that. I'm sure Venezuela will, and they've said that they will, and we will see it. I'm sure. I am very sure that Maduro will fight against the Trump administration. I mean, this conflict isn't about drugs. They can say that as much as they want, but at the end of the day, it's not. It is about control. It is about oil, and it is about land. It's about dominance over another country that the United States doesn't have influence over. And at the end of the day, it is a conflict to expand American imperialism. In other news, Trump has also confirmed that this conflict itself is about oil. Trump has come out confirming that the conflict in Venezuela is based on oil. Trump said to reporters earlier this week that his intention with the conflict was getting land, oil rights, and whatever we had, going on to blame it on his predecessors, saying they took it away because we had a president that was mouthed and wasn't watching. But they're not going to do that again. We want it back. They took our oil rights. We had a lot of oil there. As you know, they threw our companies out. We want it back. This conflict was never about drugs, just as I said. It's been a conflict about oil since the very start. Something I've said since the very start. Just as essentially every other U.S. conflict within, the past few decades. Whatever big oil wants, big oil gets within this country. Not to mention all the oil companies left on their own accord in Venezuela. due to sanctions, and they could all still be there if they wanted to. Chevron is. Like, if other oil companies wanted to be there, they very well could. No more new wars, Trump said. What a fucking joke. What a joke, truly. I mean, come on, guys. Come on. If you don't see that this is a war to expand American imperialism and a war to expand American dominance, you got to wake up. Like, this isn't about drugs. This isn't about counteracting drugs. If we really wanted to deal with drugs in the United States, we would deal with the American citizens who are bringing a majority of the drugs into this country. That's just the fact of the matter. The majority of the drugs brought into this country are brought in by American citizens. You can look at the numbers. It's something we've talked about on this show time and time again. And, if we really wanted to counteract that, we would arrest the American citizens at the border who are bringing the drugs into this country. But we're not, because it doesn't matter. They don't care about drugs. It does not matter to them. Anyways, talking about the House, where we have two topics here tonight, Republicans are breaking in support of an Affordable Care Act vote. Four moderate Republicans have broken from Mike Johnson to vote to extend ACA subsidies, joining Democrats, or subsidies. I've been told that I've been pronouncing that wrong. I wish someone would have called me out on that earlier. Thank you to whoever on TikTok told me that, by the way. But if this vote passes, it will extend them for the next 3 years. But if they expire, millions of Americans can expect healthcare premiums to absolutely skyrocket. The massive move came after Mike Johnson announced GOP leaders would not allow the vote. Because of this, Hakeem Jeffries created a discharge position to get signatures, and now these four Republicans have become the four Republicans that they need for this. This is great news, and I really hope it can pass. At the end of the day, these last two votes for extending the ACA subsidies did not pass. And if we want, to be successful, that needs to be the case. A spike in healthcare premiums, especially right now, would be horrendous. I mean, affordability is a huge deal in the United States right now. It is expensive to live in this country. It is damn near impossible to afford things within the United States, and as we speak. And it all comes down to who has the votes. I really do hope we can see an expansion to this. Of course, I don't have to pay for healthcare yet. I luck out, having to wait until I'm 25. But, I don't want to have to pay a shit ton of money. I don't want to have to break the bank just to, hopefully protect myself if I get in an accident. That's just not something that sounds great. And I hope we can get a change here, because there are millions of Americans out there who are in the same position where I do not want to be when I have to start paying for my own health care. In other news, Mike Johnson is sending House members back on vacation. Unshockingly, I mean, the man's the laziest dude of all time. Mike Johnson has once again sent Congress back home just a day before the Department of Justice is supposed to release the Epstein files in full, right before the vote is supposed to take place to extend the ACA subsidies as well. According to AOC on Twitter, like I said, view all political developments for the rest of the week in light of the fact that Epstein files are supposed to be released on Friday. House Republicans just suddenly canceled the congressional sessions Friday and are sending everyone home Thursday evening. Mike Johnson is the laziest House Speaker of all time. I mean, how this man still has a job is beyond me at this point. Another vacation right before the release of the files for one of the biggest scandals in recent history is insane. I mean, something without a doubt big is going to happen tomorrow, and it would be a hell of a lot smarter to have lawmakers, in DC during that release to talk to the people, to quell questions, to answer questions, and to go through all of that. But it's just not going to happen because Mike Johnson is sending everyone home. He's a Trump puppet through and through, and he needs to be removed from his position. We should not have a Speaker of the House be controlled by the president. I mean, come on, guys. We need separation of powers, and that's not something we're seeing under this administration. Something that we should be seeing. There's a separation of powers for a reason. And the fact that that doesn't exist under Trump is a massive problem and something that needs to be changed. Anyways, moving on into our other news segment for our final segment of the night, where we have three topics here. The first one we have is Rob Rayner's son is facing 2 counts of murder. Rob Rayner's son, Nick Rayner, is facing his has made his first appearance in court on Wednesday and is facing 2 counts of first-degree murder for killing his parents. The 32-year-old did not plea as he was held in the custody area behind a glass wall. His arraignments have been postponed until January 7th per request of his attorney. This is a very interesting situation. Information, of course, is still lacking, as a court case hasn't really happened yet. But I don't think anyone, really knows much, and very few conclusions can really be made. As always, we'll see how it plays out, and I will keep you guys updated along the way. But yeah, it's another one of these situations that we really don't know what's happening, and we're just gonna have to wait and see how it plays out. In other news, we have some really good news as Democrats have won another special election, this time in Kentucky. Democrat Gary Clemens has won a special election in Jefferson County, Kentucky, to fill a vacant Senate seat, a massive win for Democrats. Clemens won 73% of the vote, destroying the Republican candidate who had only won 25%. He will be sworn in on the first day of the 2026 legislative session and will serve the rest of David Yates' term. In a statement after his win, he said, "My life experiences reflect that so many in the South End. I have served as an Army reservist and for nearly 2 decades as a Union leader. These experiences have shaped my leadership and my commitment to service. I understand the struggles of the veterans and working families because I've lived with them. I am ready to take that same fight to Frankfurt." This is absolutely great news and massive news for Democrats. Democrats overperformed here by a long shot in a state that is already very red. I mean, 73% of a vote is nothing to be shy about at all. This man did great. Truly, he did great in this election. Congratulations to Gary Clemens. Truly, I wish him luck on his journey. I wish him luck throughout his term that he's going to serve. Truly, congratulations to him. Good for you, man. Hopefully, I can get in that position one day. Bray 2030, everyone. Don't forget it. Anyways, moving on to our final topic for tonight, the Senate has officially passed its yearly defense bill. The Senate has passed its annual military policy bill authorizing $901 billion in defense programs. This bill also pressures Pete Hegseth for his refusal to release strike videos. This bill raises troops' pay by 3.8%, demands more information on the boat strikes, and requires the Trump administration to keep troops in Europe at current levels, along with sending military aid to Ukraine. But it also implements many of Trump's executive orders, like removing DEI from the military and granting emergency powers at the US Mexico border. It also enhances some congressional oversight over the Department of Defense and repeals some wartime authorities. And also seeks to overhaul weapons purchase and technology development within the United States. This is your typical run-of-the-mill defense bill. It was going to pass either way. At the end of the day, the real question needs to be asked: should we really be spending $1 trillion a year on the military? I, as well as many others, would argue absolutely not. We should not be spending this much money. For starters, most Americans live paycheck to paycheck. A lot of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. A majority of Americans are. And that money very well could be rerouted to helping Americans be successful, start companies, stuff like that, live their lives. We've seen a huge lack of mom and pop shops since COVID. Why not use some of that funding instead of the military, to benefit local communities, bring mom and pop shops back, help people start companies and start businesses. I mean, that boosts low income economies, that creates jobs in low income economies, and so much more, and would be really helpful. It really would be. Or we would be able to pay for free healthcare. Like, come on, guys. We are the only first world country in the world without free healthcare. And the fact that Americans still think that we don't need that is insane to me. We are literally the only country who is a first world country who does not have free healthcare. China has free healthcare. Most countries in Europe have free healthcare. We can have free healthcare in the United States without a doubt. China spends a third of what we do on our military. In fact, not a single country even comes close to what we do. We have truly no reason to spend as much as we do on the military. We could cut our military spending in half and still spend far more money than any other country spends on the military, and still probably have the best military in the world still. Like, there is no reason to spend this much. With that being said, though, thank you everyone for watching today's episode. I hope you all enjoyed. My mouth is definitely feeling the pain after this one, but I'll go put an ice pack on it and we'll recover. Hopefully, all you guys enjoyed today's episode. It has definitely been a very interesting past few days in the news world. Before we close this one out, though, I do just want to ask: would you guys prefer, longer videos, instead of a nightly news podcast, an every other day or every few days podcast on a recap of all the news? It would allow me to do some more research, and of course, it would create these episodes to be very long, or quite a bit longer, rather than your just run-of-the-mill 10-minute episode, per day. Whatever you guys want, I'm truly down for. I love this job. I truly love making content for all of you. It is like one of my favorite parts about my day. I truly do appreciate that so many of you continue to watch my episodes day after day. So what would you guys prefer? Let me know in the comment section below. I truly would appreciate it. I'm looking into getting a job too at the moment. Content is not paying very much at all anymore. I was making around $100 a month, $120 a month through TikTok and a bunch of other things. And the past 2 months, it has fallen flat on its face. I will be real with you all. I made $30 in December from TikTok. I no money at all. It's not going well. So I'm in the process of trying to find a job and work a work schedule into that. So it is very possible that episodes could slim down a little bit. Not be a daily thing. But whatever works for you guys, whatever you guys are interested, please let me know. I would really appreciate all of your guys' thoughts and opinions on these episodes. With that being said, thank you all so much for watching. Drop a subscribe if you're new. Trying to hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube by the end of the year, or by this summer. We're growing. We're growing really fast, guys, and I truly do appreciate all of these forms of support. I know I say that all the time, but you guys are so amazing. Thank you all so much for watching. And if you're on Substack, please consider subscribing as well. All funds go to me. Once again, it helps me pay for my groceries, helps me pay for my clothing, all the things that I need to pay for, my bills and all of that in my life. It really helps me out. Truly, it really helps me out. So please subscribe. All the support would be greatly appreciated. But with that being said, thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And I will see you all tomorrow with another episode.